As a black male myself, I've been the token. I've been in spaces where literally I walked in the office and I saw people's faces clam up because they were afraid. They saw me and they were like, oh my God, who is this? Does he belong here?
We'll discuss race and how it plays a factor and how we didn't even talk about this topic because we were afraid.
A Black Executive Perspective.
Welcome to a Black Executive Perspective podcast, a safe space where we discuss all matters related to race, especially race in corporate America. I'm your host, Tony Tidbit. And again, we're live at WNHU 88.7 on the Richter dial, the University in New Haven podcast studio. We want to give them mad love for hosting a Black Executive Perspective podcast. Hoping everybody continues to enjoy their summer. Go Chargers. And obviously, as we always do, we want to pay homage to our partners at Code M Magazine. Please check them out. Their mission is help saving the Black family by first saving the Black man. So please go check them out at codemmagazine.com. So today is a really, really special day. I'm very excited about our guest who's on, a good friend of mine. And I'm pretty sure you're going to get a lot out of him. But what we're going to do today, we're going to dive into the particulars of organizational leadership and diversity. We'll discuss the specific challenges that CEOs, Chief Human Capital Officers, and Chief Diversity Officers face in creating high-performing, diverse, and inclusive teams. Joining us is Alex Tremble, founder and CEO of GPS Leadership Solutions. Alex will shed light on the common frustrations and hurdles in implementing effective DEI strategies across different organizations. We will also examine the crucial differences between leadership development and leadership advancement. Let me tell you a little bit about my friend Alex. Alex D. Tremble, founder and CEO of GPS Leadership Solutions, is a best-selling author, executive coach, and keynote speaker. He started his career in executive leadership development at the U.S. Department of the Interior and later served as chief of staff within the U.S. National Park Service. Alex's mission is to empower ambitious leaders to achieve their personal and professional goals by fostering clarity, intentionality, and leveraging strategic relationships across all facets of life and business. He has authored 3 best-selling books, the most recent, Relationships That Work, Simple Steps to Building Intentional Connections in Business and in Life. He's also been recognized by the Aspen Institute and the Leadership Center for Excellence. Alex hosts an internationally known top 10% ranked podcast called The Executive Appeal. Alex Tremble, welcome to a Black Executive Perspective podcast, my brother.
Hey, what's going on, my brother? Thank you so much for having me here with you.
Buddy, I am so excited that you're here, and look at you all dialed up, all right, looking like $1,002,002.
Anytime I can spend time with you is a time well spent, and I got to look spiffy for it.
Oh, well, you know what, buddy? I really appreciate that. But more importantly, I appreciate that you're here to share with our audience, right? Because you have a very accomplished background. You've done a lot of great things. You started your own business, and you really help leaders, which we're going to chat about today in terms of helping them take their games to the next level. So I know our audience is going to get a lot out of you today. But before we get into the heavy stuff, why don't you give us a little bit about, where you're currently living, what you're currently doing, and tell us a little bit about your family, my friend.
Okay, so I'm a Libra. I like long walks on the beach. Funny enough, I was talking to someone the other day. They're like, "Oh, you like the beach?" Like, no, I don't like the beach. I'm more of a mountain guy, actually. I love the green and the water, like in the waterfalls, stuff like that. But yeah, Alex Tremble. I am out here in the DMV area, DC, Virginia, Maryland area. I'm blessed to have a little boy. He's turning 1 year old tomorrow. So whenever y'all listen to this episode, just know the day after that, my boy turned 1 year old, and he swears he's grown already. I don't know what this guy's trying to do.
Well, you know what? He's growing. That's what he's doing.
There's a difference between grown and being grown, and he think he can order us around.
Well, that's awesome. Tell us about your lovely wife, my friend.
Well, my wife is, again, lovely, wonderful, beautiful, intelligent, all the things. Her and I actually met via Facebook back in the day. She is from Myanmar, the country, Southeast Asia.
Okay.
And we met via when I was going to college, an undergrad in Iowa, and she was an undergrad college in Massachusetts. And she doesn't like that I say this, but this is what actually happened. I came across her profile because we had a mutual friend. I thought she was cute, so I had to shoot my shot, and it worked. We've been together for 17 years now, married for the last 10.
Well, congratulations, my friend. And one thing we can always say, college definitely paid off, not just from a business standpoint, but also from a family standpoint. So that's awesome. So listen, my friend, tell us, look, like I said, you're very accomplished. You got a lot going on. You got a thriving business. You travel all over the world, helping executives in terms of their business and really helping them from a personal standpoint. Why did you want to come on a Black Executive Perspective podcast to talk about this topic?
Well, first, to be with you, actually, just to hang out with you. That has to be the number one answer. Second is exactly what you talked about just a second ago. You said helping people in their work and in their personal life. And see, again, this is sometimes a very unpopular statement to make in the wrong rooms. But I'm going to say this right here because I think we're in a safe space. Executive leaders are an underserved group. And people always I was talking to someone really close about this just this past week. And I was like, I said that. And they was like, what are you talking about? They got all the money. They got all the power. They got all the influence. And I'm like, yeah, see, that's the problem. Everyone thinks just because they got some more money, got some more power, got some more influence, that their lives are perfect. And all of us know who are in those roles and work people in those roles, that is not the case.
Right.
They have family issues just like everyone. They have budget issues. They have what's called where they don't think they're good enough. They have challenges navigating the workplace versus their family life. There's so many challenges that they deal with. This is why I love working with them, because also just from a practical standpoint, when they're not living their best life, when they're not functioning at the high level they can and should be functioning at, who ultimately pays the price, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the stakeholders, the stockholders, the
organization,
the communities they work with,
right.
The organization, the employees, right? This is really important.
Got it, my brother. Well, listen, seems like you already chomping at the bit. So you ready to talk about it, my friend?
Yes, sir. Let's go.
All right, let's talk about it. So before we get in there, I want our audience, because obviously you just said a lot, and people listening to this, based on the description you just talked about in terms of people thinking that they're perfect and they're underserved from an executive standpoint, right? And they need help, right? So talk to us a little bit. Let's back up a little bit and let's learn a little bit more from Alex about who is this guy, Alex Tremble. So talk to us a little bit about where you grew up, early life, and the influence. What influence did you have in your life as you grew up that helped you, shaped you to where you got to where you are today?
Wow. What's funny is I very rarely am asked these questions, right? So you got me thinking. So I'm initially from Victorville, California. So a SoCal boy myself. And if I think about the first thing that I can remember that helped shape who I am today, it is my biological father leaving when I was just 2 or 3 days old. That is the thing I think has driven me the vast majority of my life and everything that I've been able to accomplish. It was funny because going through school, I was a good student, not straight A's, nothing like that, but a good student. But I was in the football team. I got my senior year, all area, all CIF, all LA Times, all the good stuff. I was a wrestler. I was in the track and field team, definitely the field part. And I had this drive to be successful, to do well. And I still remember, and let me please stop me if I'm going off track in any way.
Oh
I
no, you're
still
good.
remember my my auntie, one of my favorite aunties, one of my favorite people. She was getting baptized, and I saw, it was like in high school. I saw this as an opportunity to meet my biological father. I knew he was going to be there, and so I brought this photo album of me and my friends and me playing football and things like that. And I was so ready to show him, and he didn't even want to take the time to look at it.
Mm.
And I remember being devastated, but it didn't stop me. I still kept working, striving to do as well as I can. And I talk about this in my book briefly, The Relationships at Work. That drove me so hard to accomplish so much stuff, just because I had a desire that maybe if I was good enough, if I achieved enough, he would want to be part of my life. And just a few years ago, me and my auntie were talking. She was like, Alex, look, real talk, you got to stop.
Right.
He doesn't care about you. He doesn't want to be in your life. No matter what you do, he is not going to be that guy. And that was one of those times that I needed that straight talk, because again, even as an adult, I still was putting it out there. Even though I talked to myself and said I wasn't, I still was. But ultimately, I'll tell everyone this is like, and I do believe this 100%. All of those things that we look back on our life and say how dark, how hard, how trying, how all those places in your life that you just weren't sure you were going to make it, those things, they seem bad in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
but if you look at them in retrospect, everything that you've accomplished is in part due to those things. As I look at my dad, yeah, my biological father left me, and that put me in a very difficult psychological situation for a long time still. And let's be real, it's still with me, right? But if he hadn't left, I wouldn't have my five siblings, right? Because I would have been in a different family. If he hadn't left, then I wouldn't have met my wife, because I would have probably been overseas with him because he was in the military. If he hadn't left, the list goes on and on and on and on. Maybe I wouldn't have had that same drive that allowed me to get my first job as an adult was to create and manage the executive leadership development program for a U.S. federal agency and manage 3 government-wide executive leadership development programs when I was 23. So maybe if he would have been around, I wouldn't have worked as hard. That would have set me up for those situations. And so I encourage everyone that even when times are good, look back at their life and just look back at your life and see those hard times, and make that connection to say, oh, wow, I am where I am because this did this, which did this, which did this. And so if you do that, if you can be honest with yourself about how those negative and those hurtful moments in your life contributed to your positive situation, then when you're in a dark and trying time, it's easier to say, you know what, I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to be looking back on this in a few years and saying how it helped me grow that next level of my life.
Yeah, I love you. For number one, thanks for sharing, my friend. And hey, listen, you threw a lot of nuggets in your story that people could take away from, right? And one of the things you just talked about that, this happened. Like you said, he left when you were two or 3 days old, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you were able to hopefully build a relationship with him at your game, and he didn't even want to spend time with you, right? But one of the major lessons is that you just got finished saying a couple years ago, and if I make sure I'm clear, that you had a talk with your auntie, and she said, let it go. Okay? So you still carried that, even though
Oh yeah.
you knew you were helping other people.
Mm-hmm.
They had their
Mm-hmm.
own stories or had their own missing pieces in their life. You were providing them advice. They were like, thank you, Alex. Oh, my God, blah, blah, blah. And you must have it all together because you're able to help me. But there was a piece still missing with you. So net, we don't, and I love to hear your thoughts on this, we don't become instantly cured in situations. We learn how to deal with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, we got to learn to let it go. So what's your thoughts on that? Because look, you are helping people, but while you were hurting and yeah, you use it as motivation. Yeah, you were able, you wouldn't have met your wife. Yeah, I mean, all those things are true. But at the end of the day, you're still human as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to make a quick amendment to that story just so everyone understands the very important part. So yes, my auntie told me that a few years ago. But when I was in college, my mom figured out the reason why I was working so hard, and she told me, "Hey, Alex, do this for you, not for him." And then my auntie's boyfriend, because I actually we were at a wedding. We were preparing for a wedding, and my biological father and his new wife went to the house, and we were in the same space at the same time. And I was, man, Tony, you wouldn't recognize me. I was so cold. They tried to say hi, I wouldn't talk to him. Didn't talk to nobody. Had this mean mug on my face the entire time because I wanted him to know that I was not happy with him. And my auntie's boyfriend pulled me aside and said, Alex, don't do that. You are allowing him to change who you are. You are a funny, kind, helpful person. And the person you're being right now is not that. And he was like, doing that is not going to allow you to release your emotions you have. Because in order to be upset and angry, you have to harbor those relationships, that emotion. And so that next day after he pulled me aside, completely different person, me, just laughing, joking. But I even again, that I'm still working through that. So the point being that I think that we should be mindful that yes, I think everyone is going through something at some point. And just because you're going through something at some point doesn't mean you can't help someone else out with their situation. And I think it actually probably helps you when you're helping other people, just go through those difficult life challenges,
Buddy, preach. You mind if I tell you a story? And, it's interesting.
Please.
When I met you, actually I was a guest on your podcast, and we hit it off. We just had instant chemistry. And I knew nothing of the story that you just shared, right? Let me share something with you, because I always think kindred, you talk about kindred spirits. I believe that there's no coincidences. You meet people through your life as you walk the earth. And it's not based on luck. It's reason, season, lifetime, and we can get into that another time. But the reason I bring this up, because I didn't know your story, but let me tell you mine. I remember when I turned 13 years old on my birthday, my mother came to me and told me that who my real father was. And I knew that, my stepfather wasn't my father because I didn't look like the rest of my siblings. Yeah. Okay, so I knew that, right? But then she dropped that on me, and it was heavy. I didn't even know how to process it. Okay, like you, I just wanted to be something. I just very ambitious, and look, I didn't get to the levels that Alex Tremble did, which is awesome. Okay, but here's the thing. When in my 30s, all of a sudden I was sitting with my girlfriend, now wife, watching a movie, and I saw Antoine Fisher, and a movie about a kid who was in the Navy having hard times, and he didn't know his family. And Denzel Washington told him to, go and find your family, right? And at the end of the movie, he found his family. And I started crying uncontrollably. And my wife was looking at me. She was like, "What's wrong with you?" I mean, not tears strolling, crying uncontrolled, because that hurt that I was carrying all of a sudden came out. Okay, it came out, and she didn't know what to do. I'm talking 5-10 minutes and then I knew I had to go find my father. Okay, yeah. So I went on that journey. Okay, and I was able to find him. And my father was a successful businessman in Detroit, Michigan, just successful. And this is the thing. This is where I got my entrepreneurial spirit. This is where I got my ambition and stuff to that nature, even though he wasn't in my life. And I pulled up into the parking lot of his business, sat outside for like 20 minutes, afraid to go in. And then I walked in. And as soon as I walked in, it was a family-owned business. And they looked at me, double looked like, because I supposedly looked a lot like my father. Yeah. And I asked for him to come out. And they said, "Have a seat." And I waited 10 minutes. And he didn't come out. Okay? And you know what? I said, "Thank you." I walked out. And guess what? He became dead to me after that. right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I fulfilled my mission. I went to look for him. I didn't care what happened. I wasn't looking for money. All I wanted to do was see somebody that looked like me.
Yeah.
Okay. And I carried this hurt for years, but he didn't want to have that relationship. So guess what? It was done, and I've never looked back since. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thank you for sharing your story, because those are not easy stories to share. Okay. And this is, and to your point about becoming so successful based on that, and also the positive outlook, I can definitely relate, my brother. So one of the things I want to ask you, GPS leadership, tell
Yes,
us a
sir.
little bit, how did you start that, man? Because you've been helping people for I don't know how long, right? So talk to us a little bit about that.
So, it's funny actually. So the reason GPS actually came about was because I literally I was on a metro train, heading outside of DC. An organization had asked me to come and speak, and I'm like, yeah, sure, sure, but I didn't have a name, like I didn't have an organization's name, and so look, this is literally back when I was like 25 years old or something. I'm on the metro and I'm talking to one of my mentors, and she's like, well, what do you want to talk about? I said, well, in order to be successful, you got to make sure you have, your goals. You got to have goals. And she said, okay, okay. And she said, what else? And I said, well, once you have your goal, then you can develop a plan, right? A plan. And she said, okay, cool, plan. And then, you know what? You got to have the plan, but you also got to have like the strategies, like how do you build those connections with the right people? Because for me, it's always been about connections. I've always my entire life's journey has always been just being blessed that people wanted to help me,
Mm.
and there is something I did to make people want to help me. And I think that that's what we teach through our programs and our training and our coaching, things like that. Like, how do you build those very intentional and meaningful connections? Because that's where if you're at the executive level, that's what it's about, right? It's about how do you navigate difficult situations via people. And so she said, "Oh, okay. So what you're talking about is GPS," and I was like, "Goals, plan, strategy. Oh my God, this is okay." Now,
Wow.
over the years, we actually, transitioned the language from goals, from GPS being goals, plan, strategy, to goals, plan, and stamina. Because the plan is kind of like a strategy, but you know what? When you're going to reach your goal, especially with, again, these higher level, super high level, super exclusive clubs that you're in when you're at those levels, you're going to need some stamina. Things are going to get hard. They're going to be challenging. You're going to have to work some long hours at some point. You're going to make some tough decisions, right? So you got to have that stamina, especially if you're, again, a person of color. As a Black male myself, I've been the token. I've been in spaces where literally I walked in the office and I saw people's faces clam up because they were afraid. They saw me and they were like, oh my God, who is this? Does he belong here? And I have some, not funny, some interest. You laugh at them in retrospect, but some situations that's happened just because of my face and how I look. And so I think you have to have that stamina if you plan to not only reach those levels, but sustain yourself at those levels.
So, buddy, tell us specifically, like, what do you do? How do you help? Tell us a little bit about your programs and stuff to that nature.
Yes, sir. So, I tend to, or when I say we, I have a phenomenal team I get to work with. Tend to work with chief diversity officers, chief HR officers, and CEOs. Like you said that at the beginning. Generally, because those are the individuals who have domain over the entire organization when it comes to developing leadership programs and whatnot. At the same time, we do a lot of leadership coaching. We had this phenomenal woman, SVP at this Fortune 500 company. Her and her VP team, we coached for them for about a year, and just the results were amazing. They were going through a merger, and how do you navigate through a merger? Again, you all know at those levels, it's the people at the top who have the greatest chance of being exited, right? And so how do we navigate and keep all these executives inspired, engaged as you're moving through this process. So let me take a step back, though, to answer your question directly. You mentioned what I'm really passionate about, leadership development versus leadership advancement.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the reality. Many of these organizations, especially a lot of organizations who say they're about inclusiveness and they say they're about increasing diversity within their organization, as your last guest actually spoke about a couple of weeks ago now.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time you look at the executive ranks, you look at the board ranks, or even the senior leader ranks at some points, there's no diversity. There's always diversity at the low end, right? People who can sweep the floors or, file some documents for every once in a while. Great diversity there.
50% of the company.
but when it comes to decision makers, when it comes to people making the big bucks and having those influence, the diversity just tends to just dissipate somewhere. So, but why? The question is why? We have these great leadership development programs. We're developing these phenomenal leaders. But here's the rub: is there's a difference between developing a leader, which is, conflict management, budgeting, project management, account, whatever you got those leadership skills. Great. Hooray. We're done. Okay. Less leadership development. There are so many people who've been developed as leaders who have not advanced.
Right.
There's a difference between leadership development and leadership advancement. Saying another word for it is, what is your intentional succession planning, right? And so when we go into organizations, it's not only, making sure that, yes, these people are developed and they're prepared to move into these senior executive level ranks, but it's, have they built the right relationships with the right people? So when opportunities arise, they are the ones who are thought of, because at that level, it is about who you know.
Correct.
Who you know, who trusts you, they know that you're loyal, and so on and so forth. And 80% of opportunities are actually given via relationships, not resumes.
Right.
Not because, that person, they're such a hard worker. No. There's a lot of people who work hard.
Right.
You and I know a lot of people right now who work really hard and they're not where they want to be. So It's not about hard work. It's not about leadership skills, because Black and brown people have leadership skills. It's not like they don't have the skills. It's they don't have the connections to the influencers required to be in those rooms and have a seat at the table. So we build programs, policies, and initiatives that not only develop those leadership skills, but also intentionally connect them with those people who are going to ultimately be the decision maker when they need people to move into those roles.
So thanks, buddy. Let me ask you this, because, number one, you hit it on the head. There's a lot of programs to develop people. I went to, a program at the University of Virginia, Darden School of Business. All right. And it was 50 of us there from all across the country. All right. And again, I don't know how many people actually moved up. Okay. That's the thing. Right. So you're 100% right. So how do you, though, you say you develop programs to teach them to network and meet the right people in the right room, and talk a little bit more about how does that work? Because at the end of the day, and I don't want to skip, because you said a lot of great stuff, but I just want to make sure everybody heard 80% of those advancements is based on relationships. Let's just be clear here. Okay. Everybody, when I was in business school, they said that, they were like, Tony, at your level, and I wasn't talking to me, I was talking to everybody in the room. At you guys' level, we already know you're qualified. Okay? That's just automatic. When you're interviewing, they're not asking you questions about, they know that already, just based on what you've done. It now becomes more about a people thing, a culture thing. Do you fit in, and the only way you're going to answer those questions is about having those connections with people. Plus you got to have people that's going to sponsor you and speak on your behalf, right? When you're not in the room, that's already saying, we got to have this guy because he's got this, or she's awesome, blah, 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 blah. If you ain't got that, you can be. So look, go into it. Tell us how your program helps in that capacity.
So in the beginning, there is heaven and earth.
So is that
y'all
much?
See, I love that. Y'all know I love that fun. So look, here's the thing. One, the first thing is it needs to be elongated, right? This is not we're going to send someone to a day, a week-long course. Now it's all done. That doesn't happen. So there's a few factors that need to take in place. First is that we go to the 4C connection model. This is what we base all of our stuff on, 4Cs. The first is mindset change, then internal clarity, external clarity, then behavior choice. The first thing is mindset change. First is mindset change, because if you don't change someone's mindset, nothing else is going to, we can teach you all the skills in the world, but you'll never do it, right? Because you don't agree with it. You don't understand it. So the first thing
Alex,
is mindset
just real
change.
quick, when you say change somebody's mindset, give an example, like what type of
Yes.
mindset change? Okay.
Yes. So there's many different levels of this. The first is the mindset of the individual, because I can't tell you how many individuals who get to these levels who say, I don't want to rely on my network. I don't want to rely on who I know, because I want to show everyone that I can do it, that I'm smart enough, that I can just push it all by myself. No.
For real?
Oh, there are so many leaders at this level who it's called imposter syndrome, right? They don't believe enough in themselves. They feel like they have to do it themselves still at that level. And so they want to show, especially again, Black and brown people, they want to show that, hey, I'm smart enough. I'm not just here because I'm a number. I'm not just here because I know somebody. But the reality is that everyone else is there because they know somebody.
Right,
and it's nothing wrong with that. So it's changing the participants' mindset on this. And then second is changing the organization's mindset, or those decision makers specifically, to say, hey, look, putting people in a leadership program is not going to make change. Just look at your data. If putting people in a leadership program made the change, then you would have different data. But your data is showing that you still lack diversity. So then we need to do something different. What's the saying? If you want something to change, then you have to change, right? To change how we go about this. So first is mindset change, and this is the whole big thing. Second is internal clarity. Again, internal clarity for the person is different for the organization. Internal clarity for the person is understanding for that person, what are my goals? What are my desires? Where do I want to be? Why do I want it? Understanding everything you can about yourself. Why? Because when people think about relationship building, they always think about the other person. Oh, I got to meet that person. I got to meet that person. I got to meet Tony. Well, here's the problem. Maybe Tony's not the right person for you to connect with right now. Maybe that person over there is not the right person. You need to understand where you're headed so that you know who can help get you there. You need to understand what resources you have access to so you can know who to help, what you don't have access to, and who can help you get there. You need to understand where you feel most comfortable, because here's the reality. When you feel comfortable, you look confident. When you look confident, you are trusted, and you can establish those relationships much easier, right? But that's all that internal work, that internal clarity. Once you have external clarity, the same thing for the organization. Organization has to make a decision for themselves. Where do we want to go? Do we want inclusivity and diversity at these levels? Are we willing to put in the energy and the effort to make this happen? Sorry, let me take a step back. Not just the energy and the effort, the money, right? We can say we care about things all day, but we all know your priorities are dictated by your budget. So you look at your budget, you can see what the priorities are. So are you willing to actually invest in these people, making sure they have the time and space and the resources to actually advance into these positions? Then after internal clarity is external clarity. For the individual, now that you understand where you want to go and what you're missing and what you need and so on and so forth, who can help you get there? Where are they at? Who are their friends? Who are their enemies? How can you help them? What are their needs? What are their desires? Right? That's that external clarity. For the organization, you've made a decision that you want to move forward in this direction. Who can help get you there? Obviously, this is where GPS leadership comes in, and we help, again, create these programs and manage them, coaching, and all the things like that. Then finally is behavior choice. Behavior choice is what everyone loves to talk about when it comes to relationship building. Oh, I should shake this person's hand. Oh, I should look them in the eye, whatever it may be. Those are behaviors. Here's the reality. It doesn't matter what behaviors you know if you don't have the right mindset. because you're not going to do anything. Doesn't matter what behaviors you know if you don't have internal clarity because you don't know where you're headed. You don't matter what behaviors you know if you don't have external clarity because you may be talking to the wrong person.
Right.
So this is why all those things need to happen in order. And then we'll talk about this new idea I've just been working on. I'm really excited about it. But the long story short is we take them through this 4C connection model as an organization, as an individual. Again, elongated program is generally what works best. At least 9 months to 12 months, because you need the time to allow them to actually build relationships with those decision makers within the organization. It can't be, again, it's not a week thing. It's not a 2-week thing. It has to be over and over and over, because not only do they need to understand that these things are important, but many of them are still lacking the skill when it comes to building intentional relationships. Now, again, many of us have reached these roles by chance, by just working hard, by pure force, right? Just doing whatever you got to do. But there's easier ways, right? You don't always got to beat your head up against the wall. There are easier ways. So that's what we teach them, specific skills, some that we go over, many that we go over in the book, Relationships That Work. But we teach them these very specific skills connected to their specific, unique needs and goals.
So tell us a little bit about, like, based on everything that you've done, give us some examples of how you, or some major accomplishments you were able to be, some wins that you were able to do from an organizational standpoint. Obviously, you're helping individuals, so that part I think is a no-brainer. But tell me a little bit about some of the organizations you were able to change their mindset, get them to network, right? Because it's not as much Tony Franklin going and meeting with everybody, right? It's about the senior leadership, all right, the C-suite coming and meeting Tony Franklin and spending time with me, and then say, oh, we got one. All right. So tell me a little bit about that.
One of my favorite ones that come to mind actually is the work we did at the U.S. Department of the Interior.
Okay.
So here's the reality. Again, as in the private sector, as in the federal government, there's a severe lack of diversity at those senior level positions.
Okay.
So the question was, how do we increase the number of individuals in those senior executive level roles? It's like, cool. And they want to do it via a mentoring program, which I am a huge proponent of. I love mentoring programs. We craft, create, launch many mentoring programs for organizations. And so for this one, I'll tell you, I don't believe in, like, there's one shot, one kill. Look, snipers are great at it,
unless you
and
got
that
a
is their
job.
That's their job.
No, I'm teasing, bro. Go ahead. You got a shotgun, you could blast a lot of people.
But look, right? Shotgun, right?
Right.
I believe in a shotgun approach, but a controlled shotgun, right? So instead of saying we have one program that's going to help one person, right? Or because that's the problem with most mentoring programs. By design, most mentoring programs other a lot of people, right? You can only have so many people in a mentoring program. If you can only have 30 people, 40 people, what about the rest of everyone else who may be a great position or great shot for that next opportunity? They get nothing, right?
Right.
And so I think you have to have multiple levels of this. So what we did with Interior is actually create a few different levels of mentoring opportunities as well as a mentoring program. So we had, yes, the mentoring program that was focused on just connecting those senior level executives with those people who were just about to move in. So we had about 40 people in that program. Very specific, very intense, very, I don't want to say controlled, but monitored for an extended period of time. Yes. We also then had a number of mentoring events consistently happening. So we had speed mentoring events, right? So those things happen consistently throughout the year to allow anyone who wanted to access these individuals and or other leaders and mentoring opportunities to access that. So we would have, it was actually really cool. Sometimes we did days for women, women in leadership, executives, project managers, IT professionals, if whatever. We did obviously the assessments first to figure out who was looking for mentorship, what did the ranks look like, what were the positions that need to be filled in the next few years, what are the skills required. So once we did all that work, it was really easy to identify what were those big buckets that we could keep hosting mentoring events for. Again,
so Alex, can I just jump in real fast? Just want to make sure I'm clear, right? So if I'm hearing when you say the speed mentoring program, that was a program where senior leadership could come down and meet with people who were interested in a mentor program so they could help develop and, more importantly, see their pipeline of individuals. And then when opportunities, they could pull because they're building relationships. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, buddy.
So again, that was on. So now you have two levels. You have the program that's for 40 people. You have the mentoring events, the speed mentoring opportunities and whatnot that are happening for a few hundred people. But I don't think that's enough. I still think there's opportunity out there. So with the government's massive, right? So we had one department. Let's say, how about we work with other departments as well? And then we started having events with OPM, all the acronyms, sorry. The Office of Personnel Management, U.S. Department of Interior, USDA, the FBI, all the other organizations. I started coordinating with them, and we had bigger events for everyone there because now you're cross-pollinating across different departments. And you're exposing people because the reality is that one department only has so many slots. So now you're exposing them to other opportunities. And the same thing can actually go within organizations, especially the bigger organizations that we work with, that they have thousands and thousands and thousands of employees. You can do something at your department level, then also do something at the organizational level. And then if you're feeling good about yourself, do something industry wide, right? There's so much fear in losing great employees, which I understand. Great employees are always going to be sought after. But if you can create a culture and a brand of you wanting people to come in and see what you do and you allowing them to see what other people do, one, they're going to learn some new stuff that they're going to bring back to your organization. And two, if they leave, there's probably someone else who out there who attended your event who says, you know what, I'm interested in this organization. So it keeps the new blood as well, new blood coming in.
So net, were you, based on working with the Department of Interior, on the programs you put together and then cross-pollinating with the other departments, did you see, not just from a development standpoint, but did you see from an advancement standpoint?
Yeah. The number of, so what they have in the federal government is called SES CDPs, Senior Executive Candidate Development Programs. So basically, a department will host one or potentially two of those each year. And not all departments even have those. But in order to become an executive, there's two ways. There's the hard way, and there's the SES CDP. And look, the diversity within the SES CDP within the next couple of years just skyrocketed. And the cool part about it was the individuals who had participated in the mentoring programs who actually got into those programs. And I'll say this, and this is the quiet part out loud. Most people, unfortunately, in the federal government, look at those programs. Again, we work in both federal and private, but this is specifically for the government. But I think the same thing happens in the private. Most people believe that in order to get to that executive position, they got to have a really great experience and they got to write really great resumes. But I've been behind the curtains. I've worked behind the curtains. It's horse trading. I want this person in. Okay, if you want this person in, then I got to have this person in. And they're picking people's names off of who they know, who they support, who they trust to do the job well. That's how it happens in the government as well in the private sector. You just, like you said, at a certain level, they know you're qualified. It's about who do I know, who do I trust to come in here and do a good job.
And that's in every, I mean, if you got hired as a manager of a baseball team, and they already have coaches there, right? What do you want to do? You want to bring your own people in, all right? You want to bring in people that you trust, that you know, right? And so that's important. I've not been at a place where that has not happened, okay? So let's shift a little bit, buddy. I want to ask you a couple pointed questions here. And I want to get your and you've always been a very authentic individual, as you are right here on the show. Why is it that companies struggle advancing people of color at leadership positions? You've worked with, hundreds or thousands of people of color that are very qualified, that are smart. They have all the tools. They go through these programs. They do this and that. But then and I appreciate the case study that you gave with the government. But at the end of the day, most is still nil in terms of the people that actually end up moving up. So and you work with these companies. Talk to us.
So there's a few things. The first, and here's my perspective on life, just really quickly. I do believe that the vast majority of people are good people.
Yep, I agree with that.
And I think they're doing the best they know how to do.
I don't know about
put
that.
that out there. Well, no, the best they know how to do.
Okay. But go ahead. I want to hear your thoughts. I'm sorry, buddy.
And no, that gets to my first point, is that it's the best they know how to do. That means many of these organizations just don't have the expertise. They think they know what they know. They think they got it right. I can't tell. I was working with an organization just a year and a half ago, and they're having challenges with their diversity. And I said, okay, great. Look, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to develop standardized interview questions, because they don't have no standardized interview questions. They didn't have interview process, none of that stuff. And the CEO took me aside real quick. Well, I just don't think this will work for, our senior level positions, because, I'm really good at hiring. I have a really good gut on who should be in these roles. But if you look at who's in these roles.
But what was his, but to be fair,
Mm-hmm.
his take is a take that a lot of CEOs or people at a senior level would say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what was his fear? What was their fear?
The fear is loss of control and not being able to make the decision they want to make. And I understand that. But here's the reality, is that we all have unconscious bias. And this is a reality. All of us have bias. Bias is not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It is a thing that we all have.
Very true.
And so the reality is that we like people who are like us.
There's no question.
And so even when you think you are being fair, that's why I say I think people they want to do the best. So even when they think they're being fair, hey, that person went to the same school as me. Hey, that person, they kind of look like me. Oh, they have a kid just like me. They have a daughter just like me. Oh my, like this is what happens all the time. And this is why it's extremely important to have standardized interview questions, to have a process in place when it comes to, evaluating what do you say is successful or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're just calling it by your gut is likely wrong, just in regards to biases, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I'm going to talk out the other side of my mouth, okay? So here's the deal. Even as when we work with organizations, we do our best to help them understand and identify the biases they may have in their system so that we can correct for them. That is what we do when we're with organizations. When we work with individuals, is telling them, hey, look, there are biases out there that are probably working against you. This is just being real. Let's just be real. So the question becomes, how do you create biases in their minds that work for you?
So give me an example of that, buddy.
Oh,
yeah, give me an example.
But you and I know we do this all the time. Hey, Tony. Hey, do you have kids? You have kids?
Yeah.
How many kids you have?
I got 3.
Oh, wow. Like boys, girls?
Yeah, 3 girls.
Oh, that's crazy. So I have a boy. My boy just turns 1 tomorrow, I don't have any daughters. What is it like having daughters?
It's different than having boys. Is this like, so are you just saying in terms of how to build a relationship with somebody or stuff to that nature?
It's about creating an in-group. Again, in-groups are biases. In groups are just, that just means that you and I have things in common. So
Got
how do
it.
I ask the right questions to find places and spaces where you and I have in common? So when you look at me and you look at someone else, you say, oh shoot, yeah, Alex has that little boy. And that's all I need. As
Got it.
many of those,
Got it.
and what you're doing is it's a percentage game. If you can, a probability game. If you can make enough connections, one, yes, you should be good at what you do. But if you can make enough connections, you slowly increase the probability that that person's going to go with you, just simply because unconsciously they like you more. And the reality is that most of us want to work with someone we like.
And that's just the bottom line, right? And I just want to back up one thing, because I just want to make sure clear, because we have this climate today that thinks that anybody who's black or a woman or of color, they're getting promotions based, they're not qualified, okay? And they're getting promotions based on a lack of merit, all right? And we know that's not true, okay? But I want to stay where you're going, but I just want to make sure that the audience knows, because when we say it's about who you know, right? We're not saying that you can be a bum or you're not qualified,
Exactly.
and you can still get a job because you best friends with the CEO. That's not going to happen. That's a minimum.
Not for us, though.
Exactly. That's the
Because
minimum.
I've seen it happen, but not for us.
The minimum is you're qualified, right? And they know that, right? The key is, to your point, and what you help people do is to be able to build those relationships. And you just talked about how, with the in-group example that you just shared with us, right? Those things matter, because at the end of the day, people are going to hire people that they like. And there's a negative to that too, okay? If you mind me saying, right? Because I remember we did this exercise at a company I worked at. This was probably 10, 12 years ago. And we had a guy come in and analyze, everyone's team. And I met with him, and he went through my personality, blah, blah, blah. And then he met with everybody on my team, okay? Then he came back to me and he said, listen, Tony, you're this way, this way, this way, this way, which is great, blah, blah, blah. But do you know that everybody's on your team is this way, this way, this way? They're just like you, right? And that's why you get along with them. But a couple of people that you told me that you struggle with, that you hired, they're not like you, okay? And that's why you struggle with them. And one of the things that he taught us is that you don't want to hire people that's just like you, because you're going to get the same output. You're going to get the same stuff. And when I have the people that were very detailed and very methodical, and I struggle with them, because I'm like, bro, come on, what's up? You can't be. But that's not how they process. And those individuals was just as good, and some even better, than the people just like me. And they were given a different perspective that helped the whole team. So that's one of the other reasons why you don't want to hire people just like you.
I 100% agree with you. And again, this is why we have to talk out of both sides of our mouth.
Correct.
Because from an organizational standpoint, this is how we advise, because this is the best way to do it, right? You don't want everyone like you. You don't want to be utilizing biases and and so on and so on and so forth. But from an individual standpoint, I gotta be real. Biases come into play. So I told people I don't want a fair fight. Right. I want every opportunity to get the offer. And when we work with our executive clients, the point is to get them as many offers as possible, and then they can make a choice. That's what we want. We want 3-4 offers on the table so they can say, you know what, I'm gonna pick this one. And so again, those are two different clients, right? And there's something I want to talk to you about today that I
No, we can go right to it, buddy. I want to go into your relationship model that you're launching and stuff, because that dovetails right into what we're talking about.
So I'm so excited. So I have a new workbook. So the feedback that I received about the last book, Relationships That Work, is that, Alex, this is so great. This is so wonderful. It's amazing. I had literally SVPs, VPs contacting me on LinkedIn saying, hey, you just helped me connect with a billionaire. You helped me with a multimillionaire. I just got this new job. But it would be really great if there was a workbook, something to help me on a weekly basis, make sure I'm making progress. I said, you're right. Okay, so I'm going to create a workbook, but there's a story behind why I ended up doing this. So a few months ago, I was hanging out with some people, really good people, wonderful people, great people. And we were wrapping up, we're about to leave. And then as two of those people, friends of mine, were talking on the side, and someone offered another person a job. And he said, hey, you want a job? Someone, they work at a big organization. They said, look, we'd love to have you on. Me, again, I'm completely joking. I have my own business. I have no interest in working for someone right now. I said, what about me? What if I want a job? And they laughed, and then they kept it walking. And I was like, wow, okay. So I thought about this. When I was driving home, and my best friend was there with me, and we were listening and talking about it. I said, man, there's something I want to share with you. I haven't said this out loud yet, but I've been thinking about it for the last few months. It's probably going to be raw. I hope you don't think bad of me. He said, no, I want to say it. I said, man, I think I need a new group of friends. And he says, well, what do you mean? I said, well, all the executives I work with, all the ones who've been super successful, earning their own companies and so on and so forth, they always talk about how they have a good group of friends who they're just building each other. You hire me, I hire you, you introduce me to this person. Like, everyone is winning. And I said, in this particular group, I've invested a lot in them over the years. I've gotten them contract opportunities. I've gotten them introductions to awesome people, but they've never actually helped me. And he was like, wow. He actually said this thing I really love. He said, Alex, when we were younger, time was abundant, but money was scarce. So we just did whatever, right? But now that we're older, time is scarce and money is more abundant. And so we have to be very intentional with our time and who we hang out with. I was like, that's a great idea. So I started socializing this idea with a number of my clients, and each and every one of them, CEOs, SVPs, VPs, so on and so forth, said, Alex, this is how I feel. I feel like I'm doing this alone. Like, no one is helping me. So over a few weeks or a few conversations, I developed this model. I haven't come up with a great name for it just yet, but it's going to come soon. There's really three types of relationships. First type of relationship are detractors. Detractors are people who intentionally or unintentionally hurt you, harm you, detract from you reaching your goals. They may be specifically talking bad about you, but they may just be every time you want to do something, they say, you can't do that. Or that's too hard. Don't worry about that. People who are detracting from your goals. So those are detractors. And unfortunately, way too many people hang out with detractors. And that's because, they've known them for too long, or right. They've been my friend for this, or my family member, right? Detractors. I don't like those. Okay, next one is supporters. Supporters are great. They're wonderful. They're nice. They're fun. They're your friends. You go out to drinks with, you go on trips with. They're there for you emotionally. They're wonderful. Oh my goodness, I love me a supporter. But they don't help you. They stop short. They'll give you all the advice in the world, but they stop short of helping you. And again, actually, many mentors actually fall into the group of supporters. And again, we tend to have a lot of supporters around us. Why? Because it's easy. They're fun. They're wonderful people. And then you have people who advocate for you. Those people are intentionally working to help you be successful. They are introducing you to people. They're buying your services. They're telling their friends to hire you to do work for them, and so on and so forth. Those are advocates, and those are just wonderful people. But here's the reality: there are only so many advocates, right? There are many more people who'd rather just be a supporter than an advocate, because supporter is easy, right? I'm going to say, hey, great job, Tony. I think you should do X, Y, and Z, Tony. I don't got to put my name online. I don't got to help you do nothing. I don't got to make connection. It's easy to be a supporter. Okay, so if we think about those three groups, okay, got it. Obviously, detractors, not great. Okay, so let's put them off to the side. Let's talk about supporters then. And I'll wrap up. I know we only got so much time. Supporters. Well, why are people supporters? Well, the first reason is because maybe we didn't ask them. Right? We didn't ask them to be an advocate for us. We didn't ask them for something. And many times, if you're listening to this podcast right now, you're probably one of those people who people say, oh, you're that guy, you're that girl, you're the ish, right? So people already think you're doing so well, they don't even you wouldn't need help from me. So maybe they're in a supporter role because you've never asked them for help. And so we have to be willing to understand what we want to go, where we want to go, the internal clarity, and ask people for help. Two, they may be a supporter because they see you for who you were, not who you are. See, unfortunately, when we know someone for a long period of time, their connection to us is anchored in where they met us, whether we were an intern at the time, or we were a director at the time, or we were the CEO of a smaller organization at the time. But now we've advanced so far up, but they don't see us there. So because they don't see us there, they don't see you as Tony the executive. They say Tony, oh, that's Tony, that my cool friend. We used to hang out too. You intern together. And so
Right.
don't think of opportunities to connect you with. That when you ask them to connect with someone, they don't think that you're even qualified to do something like that because they don't see you in that role, that space. Really quickly, I'll share an interesting story. Someone I knew asked me, "Hey, can you do me a solid? I need you to come on the line with one of my boss. My boss is the executive. I just need you to talk to him about some products." I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I used to work with the organization. Jump a line, have a great conversation, talk about change management, communication, internal, external, all the things, human resource, da 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 da. Get off the phone. Person picks up, calls me back immediately. "Oh my God, Alex, that was really good. You're really good at this." And I said, "Yeah, that's my job. That's what I do." Of course, because that person did not see me as
Right.
such,
Right.
right? So they saw me for who I was, not for who I am.
Right.
And then finally, the last piece on the supporter piece is that, maybe they were an advocate at one point. Maybe they were. But then they transitioned to supporter, and then they transitioned to detractor. Why? Because they were happy to help you when they were superior and you were trying to move your way up. But once you became where they were, oh, Lord help you if you try to pass them up. That don't look right.
Right.
So now they've moved from an advocate to a supporter, now to a detractor. And here's the problem, is that we see some people that we think are supporters who are actually the detractors.
Right.
Because if they have the means to help us out, and they don't tell us why they didn't help us out, the question becomes, what do they think about us? What do they truly think about? And what are they saying about us when we're not in the room?
Right.
And so this is a big, big thing I'm talking about. We can go on talking about this for a long time. Again, if you'd love to hear more, please reach out, gpsleadership.com or .org. Bring us in. I'd love to talk to you about this. But here's the point. If you are at these executive ranks, and you want to navigate, you want life to be just that much easier. If you want to be able to make movements and progress on your projects that much faster, because again, time is important at this level. It comes down to having the right relationships, having more advocates around you. I'm gonna say one last thing, and I'm gonna shut up. Here's the problem. When I share this idea, and it's so crazy, this is so interesting actually. When I share this concept with people who are at the executive ranks, or at least at the bare minimum, the senior leadership ranks, they say, "Wow, this is really helpful. Okay, I know I need to be much more intentional with my time. Okay, I got this. Okay." But when I share this concept with people who are earlier on their career or in lower level positions, the first thing they say is, "This doesn't feel right." No. So you're saying that those people aren't important? You're saying those? No, I couldn't imagine, prioritizing my time with this person versus that person as a whole. Whoa. First of all, there's nothing wrong with prioritizing your time. My wife and I have been together for 17 years. We would not have been together for 17 years if I did not prioritize spending time with her versus the barista at the Starbucks. Okay. So prioritizing your time is always going to be important. The problem, I think, and please, Tony, weigh in on this. I think the reason why many people at the lower levels don't get this is because the more success you have, the more your time has to become more valuable because you have more people asking you for stuff. And so maybe they don't have enough people in their life asking them. And like, just for me, like the last few years, I had so many people reaching out to me. Even I have to prioritize. I can't call everybody back. I
Right.
can't do every project with everyone because I have other clients.
Right. But here's the thing though, bro. One of the things, and we are running out of time, but I want to get back to one thing. I want to say something about everything you just got finished saying. It's very important. I can see why you're very successful. This is not a job for you. This is something that you're passionate about, you believe in, you provide your whole soul to it. And I can see why that any executive or organization that has worked with you, that they got everything out of you, because at the end of the day, Alex Tremble, CEO of GPS Leadership Solutions, is going to do everything in his power and then the company's power to help you become successful. So one of the things we want to hear more, and I want you to give us more. We're going to put your information on the website, but I want to, when you figure out the name, I want to get know more about your relationship model, because to be fair, and if we wasn't running out of time, that is an area that people struggle. Okay, I've struggled in that area before, right? Because it's trying to understand who you're dealing with, who's an advocate, who's a supporter. The detractors, I think most people can get it. They, but you still sometimes you think people are supporters and they're the detractors, right? Mm-hmm. So, but more importantly, I want to thank you for coming on a Black Executive Perspective podcast and sharing your love, your passion, right? Educating us on this topic. And we're going to have you come back. And I want, more importantly, to get your information on your books so we can put that up, especially the 4 C's, I believe it was. Am I correct? So we can share it to people so then they can become more enlightened as well.
Yes, sir.
Alex, thanks a lot, buddy. And look, stick around, because Alex is going to help us close out with our call to action. But now I think it's time for
Tony's Tidbit.
Okay, and the tidbit today is always a quote based on what our guest is talking about. So the tidbit today is: leadership advancement means building not just a ladder, but a lattice of opportunity that anyone can climb. Okay, and you heard a lot of that today. That was one of Alex's pet peeves. It's not just about the development. It's about the advancement opportunities as well. So don't forget to check out this Thursday our Need to Know segment by Dr. Nasinga Burton. She's coming on a Black Executive Perspective every Thursday, going into the crucial topics that shape our community and world. You do not want to miss it this Thursday. I've already seen what she put together, so definitely check it out. And now it's time for our call to action. And I'm blessed that our fabulous guest, Alex Tremble, is going to help us with the call to action. And if this is your first time listening to a Black Executive Perspective, our goal, our mission is to decrease all forms of discrimination. So our call to action is an acronym called LESS, LESS. And we're going to go through exactly what LESS is, because this is something that every human being can incorporate. And by incorporating less, we're going to make some change. So, Alex, you want to kick us off, buddy?
Yes, sir. Let's start with L. L stands for learn. That is, educate yourself on racial and cultural nuances. And what I just recommend everyone, understand your ignorance. Understand that you don't know everything. And so walk through the world with an open mind, ready to learn and consume and just appreciate.
Thank you. Exactly. And then E, after you learn, E stands for empathy, right? Since you've now become more enlightened because you've learned more about other people and cultures and racial nuances, now you should be more empathetic towards your friends and family.
Yes, sir. And S stands for share. Share your insights to enlighten others. Look, when others want to know more about us, we shouldn't expect them to be able to mind read. Like, we got to be able to open our mouths and actually share our authentic experiences, and hopefully they'll accept it and they can grow as well.
Exactly. And then the final S is stop. You want to stop all forms of discrimination that walk in your path. So if grandma or grandpa or Uncle Joe or Auntie Carol is at the dinner table and they say something inappropriate, you say, grandma, grandpa, uncle, auntie, we don't believe in that. We don't say that. And you stop it in your tracks. So if everyone can incorporate less, LESS, we'll build a more understanding world. And more importantly, we'll all be able to see the change that we want to see. So again, Tune in to the next episode of a Black Executive Perspective podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And you can follow us on all of our socials of LinkedIn, X, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at A Black Exec. For our fabulous guest, Alex D. Tremble, CEO of GPS Leadership Solutions. For my man behind the glass, Khalees, who's making all this happen, I'm Tony Tidbit. We talked about it. I love you, and we're out.
A Black Executive Perspective.